Hello and welcome to StratNews Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan, and welcome to our series on the US elections, America Votes. In the second of our series of chats, I have with me Gautam Bambawale. He was India's ambassador to China and also High Commissioner to Pakistan. So he served in both hot seats, and he will bring you a rare perspective and insight into China. So my first question, Ambassador Bambawale, is about how the US, how China's behavior has perhaps overcome some of Delhi's hesitations in terms of forging a closer relationship with the US and with other Western allies?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Surya. And I must start and begin with what the US has said about what has been happening in the last 6 months between India and China on our northern borders, especially in Ladakh. I must admire that the United States has come out strongly. The government of the United States, the US administration, the Trump administration has come out very strongly and clearly in India's favor in this imbroglio. And I think that is something that we have to really admire about the current administration. They have clearly said that the violation of the status quo has been done by China, and that China was the first mover in this whole imbroglio in Ladakh. So I think the U.S. administration of President Trump has been very clear about this. I also do not see whatever the outcome of the presidential election on the 3rd of November is, and even if there is a change in presidency, I do not see a basic change in the US position on this matter.
There's a lot of speculation about the possible Biden administration coming down hard, on India on issues like human rights and all, and perhaps even, bringing down the extent of the trade war with China, doing a deal in a sense. Do you see these? I mean, this is very speculation, but do you see this happening?
Yeah, frankly, there is a probability attached to the kind of outcome that you have just spelt out. And I think the probability for that, Surya, is very, very low. Even if Joe Biden wins the presidency in the United States, I don't see any fundamental change in substance as far as the US administration's approach to the China question is concerned. There might be a change in the way it is approached, the way it is tackled. But as far as substance is concerned, I do not see any great change because there are clear indications that the approach to China, the view taken by Washington about China, is something which crosses the aisle. Both major parties in the US and even beyond are very clear about it. And therefore, there might be a minor change in the way it is tackled, but the substantial positions of the US administration are not going to change. And therefore, I think they are not going to change vis a vis the India China situation also.
Now, in the Quad, we've seen perhaps signs of greater synergy, perhaps, although there is still no joint statement issued at the end of their confabulations. The last ministerial, again, didn't have one. And India came out with a fairly anodyne statement. Is it correct to assume that this is more of that the real stuff which goes on behind closed doors, which is left unsaid, is really what matters here? And would you like to speculate on perhaps what they would have discussed?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I agree with your the way you have put it entirely, because what is said publicly by the four parties who are part of the Quad, the Quadrilateral Security Initiative, if you want to call it in its long form, is one thing. But what they have actually discussed behind closed doors is another. And if you look at the way the Quad has moved in the last few years, we have quickly had a second meeting of the foreign ministers of the Quad, even during the pandemic that is currently on in most of our countries. So I think that itself is a signal, and one has to be able to read between the lines to understand what is happening in the Quad. Already, you can see that the Quad in its second avatar, because as you know, in its first avatar in 2004 and then onwards, it came to a full stop in 2007. But now, in its second avatar, it has already gathered much more steam than ever before. And I think this is going to continue. This is not going to stop, because I think the writing is on the wall. The Chinese have clearly shown that they are going to continue their aggressive and assertive approach, and that they want to be acknowledged as a clear hegemon in Asia. So I see the Quad just going from strength to strength.
What would you expect? I mean, I'm pressing this issue a bit, but what do you expect they would have decided upon at the last ministerial?
No, I think one has to keep in mind that the Quad is already at a level where we are more or less exercising. Our naval exercises are going ahead. Military cooperation is moving forward. The whole idea of working together is catching pace. I am sure that there is going to be already is a lot of intelligence sharing between the countries of the Quad. Three of them are already allies. India is the fourth one, and we do have good intel sharing with all the three countries concerned. So eventually, at the bottom line is that the Quad is a combine of countries in the Indo-Pacific who could, if needed to, counteract China, or even try to contain China.
Do you see the Quad emerging as some kind of a Asian NATO? It's been speculated.
I'm not so confident of it coming out as an Asian NATO. It all depends, Surya, on what action and what indications are given by the Chinese, because this is a coming together of countries who have similar values to sort of contain Chinese aggression and aggressiveness. And how China is going to move ahead after having shown its aggressive intent uh, definitely this year, even during and the pandemic, if it continues on this kind of trend line, then the Quad will definitely come in handy as a countervailing or a counterbalancing power.
So the big fat question, which has been doing the rounds of all the think tank circles, why did the Chinese do what they did?
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. There are a number of speculations about why they did what they did. And recently, they have also come out, their foreign ministry spokespersons have come out with saying that India's infrastructure development is something which alarmed them, which is really funny because, our infrastructure development is aimed at catching up with Chinese infrastructure development. So they should have understood that if our infrastructure development is going to alarm them, how much their infrastructure development, which has already taken place, has alarmed us and has alarmed other countries in the periphery of China. So I don't buy this argument, but there are other possible explanations, including the abrogation of Article 370 and the changes that India has made internally, domestically, in the way the former state of Jammu and Kashmir is governed, now the two union territories. It could be because of India, getting closer to the United States and to the Quad, as we were just discussing. But these are all speculations, and these are all possibilities. We are not 100% sure of what exactly sparked it. But I have a feeling that the Chinese thought that what they have done successfully in the South China Sea, where they have tried to what people call nibble at territory, maritime or on land. They thought that that kind of approach, which has succeeded in the South China Sea for them, may have a way, maybe a way forward for them on land vis-a-vis India. The fact is that India has not permitted that to happen. We have stood up, we have challenged them militarily, we have built up our own military forces. And we have definitely blocked Chinese advances in certain places, which may have taken place if we had not done so. So I think India's military actions on the ground have clearly shown that we will not tolerate this methodology which the Chinese use of slowly creeping forward or nibbling at territory and changing the status quo on the ground and on the seas. So we have clearly shown that we will not accept that.
So this other question about Xi Jinping. He heads the Central Military Commission, and from what we've read, he would have been involved in taking a decision of this kind. What does it say about a head of state who meets another head of state over two informal rounds, which is talked about all over the world, and then he goes and backstabs him?
Yeah.
It's a very poor reflection on this man.
No, you're right. I cannot but help agree with you. Also, it shows his the aggressiveness in his own mind and in his own makeup. And he's being aggressive not just vis-a-vis India, but as you know, he's being aggressive vis-a-vis Hong Kong. He's being aggressive vis-a-vis Taiwan. He's being aggressive vis-a-vis the South China Sea issue, on the Senkaku Islands issue vis-a-vis Japan. So all around, if you look at it, and people have already remarked on this and spoken about it, read about it, and written about it, you can see that there is this aggressive streak. I think it also comes from the fact that the Chinese believe that power flows from the barrel of a gun, and in fact, Xi Jinping himself has been quoted recently to say that military is meant to fight. So you can see this aggressiveness and this aggressive streak, and all the rest of the world is seeing it too. And as we have just discussed, the Quad is a loose coalition at present, but it could quickly form into a very solid coalition if Chinese aggressiveness and grabbing for territory, maritime or on land, continues the way it has in the course of the first few months of this year.
Would you say these shenanigans on our border and the backlash in other parts of the world would have weakened Xi Jinping's position?
His position domestically in China is pretty strong. But I think the proof of the pudding will be when we come to the next round of leadership changes,
Yeah.
which are likely in 2022, when the next, when the next meetings of the and the leadership changes of the party are to take place, scheduled and slated for November 2022. Of course, as all of you know and all of us know, Xi Jinping has changed the constitution to enable him to have further terms as general secretary of the party. But I think the key will be at around that time, in the run up to the party meetings of November 22. Whether Xi Jinping will continue as the general secretary of the party or not, that will be the true indicator of which way things are flowing in China, including the impact of this assertiveness and aggressiveness internationally.
But would you say there is opposition to him growing within the party? What's the sense?
At this point of time, I wouldn't say that. I have nothing to show for that or to prove that. And especially because this summer in August, you had the party leadership meeting at Petai He, as they normally do each year. And there is nothing coming out from Petai He which shows that there is any great opposition to Xi Jinping at present. But I think we are still, a couple of years away from that important date of November 22, when leadership changes will be taking place in China. And we will have to wait and watch how that happens. And as you yourself know, that within this 2-year period, a whole lot of other things could change. We have to see how the US-China relationship, how the US-China trade and technology battle or war moves up and develops. So there are a whole lot of things which can happen between now and then, and which could possibly, though there are no signs right now, derail Xi Jinping's plan to have yet another term as General Secretary of the party, of course, Chairman of the Central Military Commission and President of China.
Last question. Do you see the prospect of another, informal summit after all this has happened?
No, I look, the way I see it is that, both countries, because the summit can only take place if both show up, both are there. So both countries have made an attempt. Let me try to explain to you, if you have some time, Surya, what the informal summits actually portended, or what they were attempting to do. So, as you know, India-China relations are, they were sort of the current modus vivendi, or the current um, way in which India-China relations are conducted was set as far back as December 1988, when the then Prime Minister of India, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, visited China. And that modus vivendi, or that template, if you want to call it so, was that you will continue to discuss the boundary question on the one hand and try to resolve the boundary, as well as maintain peace and tranquility. So all that happens on the one hand. And on the other hand, the rest of the relationship, whether it is in economics, trade, commerce, investment, people to people exchanges, will move ahead. So over the past 32 years, you've seen that happening, and that is the template which we have followed. But in the recent few years, there have been other stresses and strains in the India-China relationship, which you know very well. So I won't enumerate them, but definitely, the question of support for Pakistan and CPEC was one. India's opposition to BRI was another. Chinese opposition to India's membership of the Nuclear Suppliers Group was a third, and so on and so forth. But it became apparent to all of us that a new template, or a new modus vivendi, was required. And therefore, the two top leaders of India and China, our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, and Chinese General Secretary of the Communist Party, President of China, Mr. Xi Jinping, they met twice to see if they could, draw up a new methodology, a new modus vivendi, a new template for India-China relations. But unfortunately, that was still a work in progress, and is still a work in progress. But in the meantime, China has done what it has done in Ladakh, and that unfortunately changes the whole situation between the two countries. So I don't see further informal summits taking place. I think the template now is set by Chinese aggressiveness, and if there can be no peace on our borders, then I'm afraid the rest of the relationship will also be impacted negatively, as it already has. And it is deteriorating even as we speak, and it will continue to deteriorate in the coming weeks and the coming months. So I think, unfortunately, though the search for a new template, a new modus vivendi, was still a work in progress, China has already done and shown its aggressiveness, and shown the kind of relationship it wants with India, which is an unbalanced, tensed, deteriorating relationship. And I'm afraid that is what they're going to get, because if there can be no peace on our borders, then the rest of the relationship cannot continue as it was in the past. And that is exactly what the Chinese are hoping to do, but I don't think that is going to happen.
So China has lost India. That's it.
Definitely. I would say that for some tactical gains, China has lost India strategically.
Ambassador Bambawale, a pleasure talking to you. As always, thank you for your insight and your perspective. And we'll meet again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Surya. Thank you. What a pleasure.